Sony made headlines when they bought Housemarque, the developer of Returnal, which is a recent exclusive for them that performed extremely well. And they have been working with Sony for a very long time, many, many years. And this was also followed by some rumblings and an accidental leak that Sony may also be buying Bluepoint, which they have also worked with for a very long time. And that is a studio that has developed a number of kind of high profile remasters and reworks of games, including most recently Demon's Souls. And this has kind of gotten everyone talking about whether Sony is in an arms race or not with Xbox, because Xbox has made such huge waves lately, buying up a number of independent studios, culminating in its massive $7 billion acquisition of Bethesda, adding all of those games to its IP library and claiming exclusives like Starfield for themselves in the future. Sony was asked about this, whether they thought they were in an arms race or not, and PlayStation's Herman Hulse commented on that. He said that they were being very selective about the developers we bring in, and he says that I'm always looking for people that have a similar set of values, similar creative ambitions, and work very well with our team that we can further invest in and help grow as creators. It's not like we're going around and just making random acquisitions. So that quote got a lot of play in a lot of different spaces, and it's easy to see what he means, because those two developers are certainly ones with a huge history of connection to PlayStation. And the first thing when I heard the Returnal Dev news was people were asking about Bluepoint, and then almost immediately there were similar rumors that they were buying Bluepoint too, because those have both been such kind of dedicated PlayStation studios for so long. And we've seen this happen in the past too, where studios that Sony acquires, like Insomniac, I think that was in 2018 or 2019, they bought them for $200 million something dollars, and they had worked really well with them in the past, and they had proven themselves with a lot of great releases, including most recently Spider-Man and now Ratchet and Clank. So Sony's purchases do make a lot of sense, like for Sony. That said, I don't know if the idea that's being implied here that Xbox is making, quote, random acquisitions is quite accurate either. I do think they just have a kind of giant pot of money that, as a $1 trillion company, you kind of have access to. Sony is big as well, but not at the level of Microsoft. So I do think that maybe some of the studios they bought are more randomized in terms of like, this is a studio, it made a good game, we want more first-party developers, like, let's buy them and then give them license to do either a sequel or something else. And I think that's something Microsoft had room for, given their somewhat limited kind of first-party offerings that were kind of very selective IPs and more limited studios. The Bethesda acquisition, like, you don't randomly buy a company for $7 billion. I think that was highly strategic because, I mean, almost no one on the market could even afford to buy a Bethesda like at that level. You'd have to have someone like Google or Amazon, which are, Amazon is trying to make its own first-party games and does not seem to have an interest in acquisitions. And then Google has gotten out of first-party games entirely, so they're clearly not in the market. And I just don't know if Sony could, spare the budget to buy a Bethesda. Not that they even kind of need to when they already have such an established roster of first-party IPs. But Microsoft, who has been constantly leaning on like Halo, Gears, Forza trilogy for so long, they got all of these IPs kind of in one fell swoop. Whether it's big ones like Elder Scrolls and now Starfield and Fallout, but like Doom and Prey and Dishonored and like new games from those studios too. And like it was kind of this giant bundle of first party, infusion into the Xbox ecosystem that kind of synergizes with Game Pass. So I think both of these kinds of acquisitions make sense for both of these companies in different ways. Sony has a long history of taking kind of smaller, talented studios, like giving them some opportunities and then seeing them blow up and make, game of the year candidate type games. And they've done this over and over and over and over again. And like, it doesn't always work. There's been some recent drama around like Days Gone, how that didn't do well enough to warrant a sequel, and that the studio's doing something else now. But like, this has happened many times over and over again, which is how we get, The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima and Spider-Man and all these different games that are kind of bursting forth to be Sony's kind of prized possessions. And Xbox is taking kind of the opposite approach, where they do have some cultivated in-house studios that are very talented, but probably not as many at the level of Sony. And so they are doing this kind of mass appeal, kind of shotgun blast approach to purchases, including one giant atom bomb purchase, which is Bethesda. And I think both of these are going to work out well for both companies. That might not be terribly insightful or controversial to say, but Sony does not really need to change what it's doing, at least in terms of how it's cultivating its developers. I think that is one thing it is getting extremely right over the many generations here. And then these recent moves make sense for Microsoft because they needed a lot more kind of first-party offerings, and it seems like they are really about to start to get a whole bunch of those in the coming years here. So it's going to be a very interesting generation. I think more interesting than the past one or two combined, maybe. And we're just getting started here, so we'll have to see what happens.